We are now joined by Ravi Ramamurti, based in Houston, Texas. He is a professor of international business and strategy at Northeastern University. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, Susan.
What do we expect to come out of this very informal summit?
I think the most important byproduct is a strengthening of a personal relationship between the leaders of the two countries. I think what the summit shows is both countries recognize that this relationship and the two economies are so important in the global economy that the relationship has to be actively managed. You cannot allow it to drift. You cannot allow events to spin out of control and escalate it to become big challenges for either country. And I think what both leaders have shown is that they recognize the importance of managing this relationship.
We know last summer there was that 72-day military standoff, but the two leaders have more in common than not. Is this expected to be an issue?
Well, I think that is what they're probably hoping to achieve through summits of this kind, is to constantly remind each other of the common ground and not allow the divisions and the differences to rise to the surface or become the defining issues of the relationship. And that, I think, is what happened last year. And it was something that I think developed on its own momentum. And I think both countries realized that that it is in our respective advantage to both countries to actively manage this. And they've already set up, I think, a few arrangements that will make it more likely that nothing will happen that surprises either country in the future. And building relationships and confidence-building measures of the kind that they have proposed at the end of the summit, I think, is a very good step forward.
How reliant is India on China?
That's a terrific question. I think what's happened in the last few years is that India and China were seen as equal players on the global stage, but the differences between the two countries have increased in the last 5 years. China has taken a significant lead over India economically, technologically, and militarily. And if this continues for another 5 or 10 years, the gap could be very significant. And the way I look at it, China does not think of India as a competitor. It sees the US as a competitor and aspires to catch up with the US. For India, though, China is a bit of a rival. And so India's goal is to not allow the gap with China to become bigger and bigger over a period of time. But India's capacity to deliver on faster growth and faster development is going to be a challenge. And this is where I think the relationship potentially could continue to be a tense relationship going forward.
How might the ongoing tough talk on trade between the US and China affect India?
Well, in some ways, I think it puts a greater pressure on China to have a cordial relationship and a deepening economic relationship with India, because China also continues to need to have access to export markets. Its manufacturing capacity and the capacity of its companies to produce goods and services is expanding very rapidly. And in the future, it's also going to include some very important services and knowledge-based services of the kind that India produces. So potentially there is a complementarity that could happen between India and China on some of these knowledge-based services. But more importantly for China, I think India is an attractive market. It's right next door. China has a significant lead over India in many industries. China would like to be able to leverage that to serve the Indian market either directly through exports or through foreign direct investment by Chinese companies in India. So I think India and China both could benefit from each other, and that is what I think they're trying to find a way to make happen.
Well, Ravi Ramamurti, thank you for joining us live from Houston, Texas.